You are listening to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast, where we strip away the noise, unleash our truth, and align with our highest self. I'm your host, Felicia Dom, certified life coach, Reiki practitioner, and chakra guide, here to help women find deep love and interconnection within themselves. This podcast is here to increase awareness, inspire your journey, and educate you as you reclaim your energy and rise fully into who you are. Check the show notes for links to my healing circle, coaching, and more ways to work with me. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Unleashed and Aligned podcast. Today, I'm here with Jen Blanford. Jen has been on the podcast before, but is coming back for July's Special Needs and Disabilities theme. She's a dedicated social media manager, mother of four, and passionate advocate for inclusion and awareness around special needs. Jen helps business owners gain visibility and build meaningful connections online, but behind the scenes, she also navigates the complexities of raising her youngest son, who is 14 and lives with severe autism. Thank you so much for being on the July theme podcast, Jen.
Thank you for having me, Felicia.
Let's talk a little bit about your story around your journey as a special needs mom and how that's shaped you today, personally and professionally.
Sure. Yeah. Nobody ever thinks this would be them, right? But so it probably started, we suspected a few things here and there with my son when he was younger, like one shortly before he turned 2 or around that time. And we were always told, both by professionals, like I would ask the pediatrician or my daughter saw some specialist and I would just pose the question to them or even friends. Everybody said, it's normal. He's a boy. He's number 4. He's got 3 big sisters. And, it's sense. I mean, people had anecdotes of this being their life, and that's fine. But it was actually when he got to be about 2.5. I was at an appointment with one of my daughters, and I asked the doctor then, he said, okay, at this point, you should contact county infants and toddlers. And from there, we went on. He got his diagnosis and he started getting special needs services through the county public school system. And that's where it all started.
How does his disability show up? What was like the signs that you had seen and what was the doctor's concerns?
He wasn't really talking much. That was probably the biggest thing. But looking back, some things that I feel like are related that were different than with my daughters is he started having some random sleep issues around 10 months of age. And he also did some things like he did some flapping and things like that. Those are probably some of the biggest. And humming, he would hum a lot as well.
What do you wish more people understood about autism, especially when it comes to older children or teens with maybe more severe needs?
I think a lot of times when people think of autism, they think of the way it's been. I'm trying to think of the right term for it. I don't want to say glorified, but the way it's portrayed, a lot of times people, oh, people with autism can do this and this. And they absolutely can. There are people who are in certain places on the spectrum who can. But that's what they think of. They're like, oh, love on the spectrum, or this famous person has autism or whatever. And a lot of people, I don't think, understand the realities of what it's like for families like ours that have a child who has severe needs and needs constant attention and supervision, and just how that affects our family.
Yeah. Can you touch a little bit on how that does affect the family and what maybe that looks like?
Sure. So if my son is awake, he has to have somebody paying attention to what he's doing and attending to his needs at all times, because he does not do basic skills for himself, dress himself. He can feed himself with his hands, but he doesn't use like a cup. He uses a sippy cup even at 14. He doesn't use the bathroom by himself. As a matter of fact, he wears diapers most of the time, things like that. He also tends to run around, like what I call it in the morning is I call it like tornadic activity. He runs around the house and is just throwing things everywhere and making like giant messes and sometimes breaking things too. It really, like, people talk about the cost of autism and you think, oh, you're talking about like therapies and maybe some adaptive equipment. We're talking about either food he dumped on the like lower cost side, or breaking windows, breaking our TVs, things like that. So it affects us because we always are dealing with this from like the perspective of how it affects our time and our energy in the day, but also like financially how it can affect what we need to spend on things and the things that we're buying and buying over and over again.
Yeah. And so when I think of that, and I would love it to be corrected if I'm wrong, but so I'm thinking like there's like outbursts that happen and that's when he's breaking stuff. Or is it like this unconscious something that he maybe does and there's no anger, or I don't want to say tantrum because I don't think that's necessarily what it is, but that's from the outside looking what it looks like with somebody with autism.
For him, it's honestly both. So during the pandemic, I feel like he was angry, and so he hit the walls a lot, and so we have a ton of holes in our drywall. But and sometimes it is anger, like when he's hitting the window or other things. A lot of times it's just this like impulsive behavior, and he's like running around and okay, I tried this on the floor. All right, let me go hit the window. Let me go do this. Lately, it's primarily just like lack of impulse control.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
So, as somebody that's balancing motherhood and your entrepreneurship and also caregiving, what helps you stay grounded when things feel overwhelming?
It can be hard. Like yesterday afternoon, he's in summer school at the moment, but he came home from summer school, was pretty good for a couple of hours. And then, like, for the next hour, was just like going crazy, getting into everything. And I don't know, I just was feeling flustered and I didn't have a lot of patience or energy and I was getting overwhelmed. I knew I was going out, but I was waiting for my husband to come home from work and I didn't have my daughters were out doing things and I didn't have anybody to watch him. And moments like those, I do my best to just take a deep breath, think about what it is I can control. And also, I guess when I'm not in the middle of things, I find that gratitude journaling is really helpful. It just helps me maintain a good perspective and maintain a little more of an even keel about things and not feel so overwhelmed about all of the challenging things in life, including caregiving for my son. That helps. I like to work out a few times a week. I go out with friends about once a month. So things like that, just taking the time for myself essentially is a big thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned going out. I could just imagine how difficult that is with a child with special needs. Do you find it really difficult for like you and your husband to have quality time together?
We don't go out often together, like by ourselves anyway. A lot of times, like I do my thing, he does his thing. We did recently have a few nights where we went out either with our 2 daughters that live at home. We went out with them or even a couple of times by ourselves because my son was at a respite camp for 5 nights, which is
Mhm.
really nice. So but generally, yeah, we don't go out and do a whole lot unless my daughters will watch him sometimes, but it's they're busy. They have their own things. They're teens and 20s and they've got their things going on, so it's hard to. And we really aside from them, we don't have anybody else that watches him because there was a time when we had babysitters and that kind of faded away as my girls got older. And there was a time when my parents could help out, but I think my son is my height now. He's strong. And I think as my parents are older, it's like they could be here to help my daughters, but it's not really an appropriate setup to have them come help out. So there isn't a lot of help in that respect. So it's like I'm doing my thing, my husband's doing his thing. And another instance where this really could affect us, where people would think about, is our oldest daughter is currently in Japan for graduate school, and she's living over there, and we want to go visit her, but we won't both be able to go together. It's just that's out of the question. I'll go, and then he'll probably go or hopefully go.
When you think of your son, he's 14 now, and what does like doctors or therapists or anybody give you an idea of what that might look like as he grows older, what the home situation would look like? Do you think he'll ever be able to be off on his own, or what does that entail? And had any of those thoughts crossed your mind about what your future looks like?
We do think about it, or I do think about it a lot. I think some of it is with him having 3 older sisters. I look at the things that they're doing, and there's part of me that's always thinks, well, I guess he's not doing that. He will probably always be either living with us. We ideally, if we could, we would find some sort of group home type situation because at first I thought, oh, that makes me sad that we would do that. But then I thought my daughters are growing up and moving out. This would be like his version of that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can. I know it's very limited with what our society has, particularly with some of his behavioral needs, especially if they continue to be present as he is older. I know sometimes people with autism, like some of those behaviors change and there are more opportunities and things available for him. But if the group home doesn't work out, I know there are day programs in the county. And actually, that's something that our county and state is really good about. They have transition services, which have already started through the school, where they give you information about programs and facilities and things that may be an option for my son. It's
Um,
definitely something we've thought about.
I'm really curious about what it looked like when you got the diagnosis, and have you been around and like children with autism, or did you know anything about it before your child had autism? What was it navigating when you first got the news and were in the stages of him growing and understanding it?
So I actually did one of my good friends at the gym at the time. Has a son who's say he's 4 or 5 years older than my son, and I know he has autism. I hate to use the functioning word, but he can do things for himself a little bit more, but at the same time, he has a number of challenging behaviors and probably also will never live on his own. So anyway, so I really leaned hard on her and talked to her about a lot of things. I got some resources from her. There are friends of mine who I've stayed connected with online who happen to have children with autism. So there were things we would talk about here and there. It's initially though, and I guess when he was younger, he didn't have quite as many of these behaviors that he has now, but I did have support. I knew people just from my other kids and from life that had kids with autism. There was a learning curve, but I also had people to help, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I think that support is so good to have, and you mentioned having some people online. Were there groups? I'm just curious, like, if a listener's out there and doesn't feel like they have support and they're going through it, is there, like, examples that maybe you could give that would help somebody find that support if they didn't have it initially with friends or family?
So initially, when I talk about online, I actually have a group of friends that was part of a support group for my oldest daughter who has food allergies I was younger, and I've stayed in touch with them, and a number of them have kids who also have other challenges. So there was that support. So that wasn't anything formal per se, but I had
Okay.
that. These days, there are groups through my son's school that meet up or have like some online groups, a lot of Facebook groups. As a matter of fact, there's a Facebook group that I belong to, Maryland Moms of Children with Autism. So that has been helpful sometimes when I'm looking for resources or different things. So there's a lot out there. And I think if, someone's child is diagnosed, usually the doctor's office sometimes might have a lead on some places that could help
Oh,
them with some support groups and such, or if it's via the school system, then there might be some support groups that way as well.
awesome. What has been some unexpected gifts or lessons your sons taught you about life, love, resilience, or anything in between?
So, like I talked about just a little bit ago, when he was first born, I was thinking, oh, well, what is he going to do? Oh, is he going to play sports like his sisters or do this like the other sister, things like that. And I think it has taught me that what he does and what he enjoys is okay. Like he likes to watch videos on his phone, likes to jump on his trampoline, likes to just chill out around the house. That's okay. That he doesn't need to do these things that his sisters do or that other kids his age would or typical kids would do. I'd say the biggest thing though is it's really shown me and it's taught his sisters, I think, a certain level of compassion and care for others. And that I think has been probably one of the biggest gifts or lessons so far.
I love that the sisters, like, it's taught them that too. I think that's a huge thing. Is there an example or anything that you could give us of how they show up differently from having him around?
I think so. My oldest for a while worked at a summer camp for mostly younger kids, and I think she was really pretty patient and good with some of them that had behavioral challenges. She also, when she was in high school, I think it was when she was trying to remember if it was when she was a junior or senior, maybe. Regardless, she helped out one period a day in this one of the special needs classrooms. So I think it showed up in some of what they choose to do, where they choose to spend some of their time.
I love that. What would you say to somebody who wants to be more supportive of special needs families but doesn't know how to show up or what to say if they're around them?
I really feel like it can vary from family to family, regardless of the child's needs. I think the biggest thing is just to be able to talk to someone, just listen to what they have to say. I think that's huge. I think sometimes family, like people I know, "Oh, I know someone's or here, do you want me to hook you up with this?" Or here, or "I heard this was good," or "Have you tried this?" Or and that's okay, but that's kind of information that can be found, not anywhere per se, but do you know what I mean? That's widely available, and it's either overwhelming, like, I don't need to know all of these things because I'm already working with the doctor, or it's kinda, "Okay, I've already been there and done that." "Oh, melatonin helps with sleep." Yeah, no kidding. Like, it's
Yeah.
melatonin and a bunch of prescription medication or something like that. So, just
Um,
to listen, really.
yeah, just to show up and be there for somebody,
Yeah, I think
whatever
so.
that looks like. Oh,
Yes, exactly.
is there anything else that you want the listeners to know about maybe a mom, an entrepreneur, or somebody that's dealing with a family member that has special needs that's out there in listener land?
I think that as a family, you can still do most things, or as an entrepreneur, you can still do most things. It just might look different. It might happen differently. Thinking specifically towards entrepreneurship, you listen to some of these business coaches or that sort of thing. They have this, oh, here, you really need to do X, Y, and Z. That's not really attainable with the life we have, but it's okay. You can still reach goals. Your goals just might look different or happen on a different timeline. So I think that's something important to keep in mind, to just not get frustrated by the way things are going. Just focus on what is good, what is going well, and what you can do next.
I love that advice. That's amazing because I think so many of us get caught up in what you said at the beginning, how you're like, will he play football? Will he do this? And what that looks like can be so different, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't make it sad or anything. It's just different. And that's how you move through it and you go through it and allowing and accepting it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and I enjoyed our conversation. And thanks for giving us a little insight into what life looks like as an entrepreneur, a mom of four children, and with one with special needs.
No, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate you bringing light to this important topic.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review so that we can connect with more people to develop our mind, body, and spirit.